This video on FPL TV is very proudly sponsored by OneFootball. With a rating of 4.8 out of 5 from now over 100,000 reviews on the App Store, OneFootball truly is the biggest and best app for football news, scores and stats from hundreds of leagues all over the world. As for FPL, you can choose to follow every team in the Premier League on OneFootball and then get live updates from all the goals and assists every game week. Download it now completely free using the link in the description box below. Hey guys, and welcome back to FPL TV. Before looking ahead to Double Game Week 29, let's see how things are going so far in the ongoing Double Game Week 28. Shortly before last week's deadline, there was news that Chelsea would also have a double game week against Burnley and Norwich, two excellent fixtures. And with that knowledge, I felt I had to bring in at least one of their defenders, with Van Dijk therefore making way. It was a difficult choice on which defender to go for, but fortunately, I opted in the end for Reece James, and well, that transfer couldn't have gone much better, with the exceptional wing-back returning 18 points against Burnley. Dreamland. This fairy tale transfer did end a little bittersweet, however, with James then picking up another injury in that fixture, and with him set for what looks to be a short spell on the sidelines, there's a decision to be made on whether he needs to be sold immediately or simply held on my bench. As for points, well, things haven't been so fruitful elsewhere in the squad, with only Coutinho so far, the one player to return from my two Midland triple-ups of Aston Villa and Wolves in their double game weeks. Wolves were particularly disappointing, suffering a 2-0 home defeat to Palace, and with Raul Jimenez once again being reduced to the bench. So a big performance from him at home to Watford next will be needed if he is to stay in my side much longer. As for Aston Villa, well, Luca Digne was unfortunately ruled out due to COVID after the deadline had passed, so a bit unlucky there, especially considering that Villa did indeed go on to keep a clean sheet in that impressive win against Southampton. Coutinho was utterly superb in that fixture and had a hatful of chances to improve on his already impressive 13-point haul. A bit disappointed to not have captained him now, of course, especially with another game still to go against Leeds. And captaining Mo Salah in his single game week fixture turned out to be another poor captaincy decision. I still back my choice to captain Mo because I personally wasn't fully convinced on the other options. And in that case, he's normally the player that when in doubt, just put the armband on Salah. He was put through on goal in the opening minutes against West Ham and missed that 1v1, so perhaps a bit unfortunate there. But there's no doubting the decision to captain a single game week player here can be scrutinised and deemed an outright mistake by some. As planned, my bench boost is active for game week 28, so I have all 15 of my squad in play, and Lacazette's 8-pointer against Watford at least made playing the chip a bit more justified. I did have Alexander-Arnold on my bench too, and that one's debatable on whether I'd have benched him or not come the deadline. But considering I had so many double game week players last week, there was genuinely every chance I could have done so. The fact is, I was always going to bench boost this week anyway, and at least therefore I never had to make that tough decision. There were some managers that did indeed bench Trent and missed out on his 12-pointer, and luckily for me on the bench boost, that wouldn't have been possible either way, so it's still a huge positive for the game week. So for game week 28, so far my team have scored a very healthy 79, even despite the Mo Salah captaincy blank, providing a very pleasing rank boost of 12,000 places up to 24k, my highest rank of the season so far. I've still got 8 players left to play, not including Reece James of course, or 7 remaining should Digne miss out again. But whether it's 7 or 8 players that feature, that could hopefully push me into the top 20k by the end of the game week. As mentioned in previous videos, my personal best rank in FPL is 22k, so I'm inching very close to that target, and it would be such a pleasing achievement to beat that this season. Let's move on to Double Game Week 29 now, and look at my current team lineup, as well as discussing lots of potential transfer moves. Also, if you do enjoy the content here at FPL TV, then be sure to leave a like and most importantly get subscribed. You can also hit the notification bell so you always know when a new video goes live. Heading into 29, the team looks in okay shape, with the likes of Son, Salah, Trent and my 3 Arsenal players boasting 2 fixtures. However, there's a few players I've certainly lost confidence with, mainly Raul Jimenez, whose place in the Wolves starting 11 isn't as secure as it once was, and with Wolves in general not scoring particularly well anyway. Jimenez does have another fixture to play on Thursday evening first, and considering they just lost 2-0 at home to Palace, you'd imagine he comes back into the starting 11 against Watford. His performance in that game against Watford will have a big say in what I do with him this week, because in game week 29 he does too face a very leaky Everton who just shipped 5 goals to Tottenham, so perhaps some small justification there to hold on to him. The only other thing that keeps me holding on to Jimenez is the fact he does at least have a fixture in blank game week 30, as do lots of my squad, so that's the reason I'm reluctant to get rid. In a perfect world, I'd very much like to replace Jimenez this week with Harry Kane, who at the moment is looking back to his brilliant best. Tottenham are notably one of the only teams that have a double game week this week in 29, as well as then having a fixture in the very small blank game week 30, further increasing his appeal. The problem here is though that in my current squad, Kane is very hard to fit in financially, and realistically one of the only ways of doing so is by downgrading Son to teammate Kulusevski, and therefore upgrading Jimenez to Kane for a -4. And that's one of the transfer routes I've looked at this week. But of course selling Son for a -4 before a double game week isn't something I'm very keen on doing. With the Reece James injury news as well now adding to my team's issues, I may reluctantly have to go without Harry Kane into this double game week. A big shame if so. In terms of replacing Reece James, there's two options. I either go for a very simple route to Tottenham's Matt Doherty, who looks to have cemented his place into the Spurs starting 11. He's a nice differential, a very affordable 4.7 million, who obviously offers a lot of threat going forward, so there's plenty to like here, as well as having that double fixture this week and a fixture in game week 30. Moving James to Doherty would also give me a full 11 for next week's blank game week 30, an appealing move. The other alternative, however, is the expensive but tried and tested Andy Robertson, a player that I absolutely love to own in FPL. Unfortunately though, I don't have enough cash to make the direct swap, so a -4 would be needed. The way to release funds to make this move possible would be by downgrading Jose Sarr to a budget goalkeeper, perhaps to Bravka, because I don't need both Ramsdale and Sarr for blank game week 30 anyway. For double game week 29 alone, Robertson is no doubt the preferable option, but it will take a -4 and then he blanks in the following game week 30, as well as then facing Man City away in game week 32, so as much as I want to bring him in for this double game week, perhaps Doherty for the short term is a wiser and easier move to make. By replacing James with Matt Doherty, that would then open up another transfer route to getting Harry Kane, while simultaneously keeping Son, and that would be by downgrading Coutinho to Everton's budget midfielder Anthony Gordon. Everton aren't exactly an appealing side to target at the moment, but Gordon at 4.5 is in my opinion their most likely player. So with a double game week this week, plus plenty of games in hand for Everton, he could end up being a very handy budget enabler. This route to getting Harry Kane would mean taking my first -8 of the season, but would however provide me with 4 extra fixtures this week. Outlandish, but not completely out of the question. So I'm weighing up a lot of different transfer routes for game week 29, and it really comes down to whether or not it's worth bringing in Harry Kane for this double, or instead waiting a few game weeks to bring him in. I'll first see how the final games of game week 28 on Thursday evening play out, and see how Jimenez and Coutinho play before making a final call. As always, regardless of what route I do take, I'll post any updates over on Twitter before the deadline passes. For the captaincy in game week 29, there's a few viable options I like in my squad, with Alexander-Arnold and Son looking very good shouts for the armband. But for me, it'll almost certainly be locked to Mo Salah once again. Granted, this may not be as blatant of a captaincy as it would have been a few weeks ago, with Mo Salah now failing to score in the last 3 games in all competitions. But with that said, he's still getting plenty of chances and has perhaps been a bit unlucky in front of goal recently, hitting both posts against Inter in midweek. With regards to captaining Salah, what I have to decide now is whether I utilise the triple captainship on him this week or not. And despite this very small blip in form, I'd still say I'm very likely to activate it. What Mo Salah does have in his favour this week is a particularly outstanding record against both his opponents of the double. In the Premier League, he's produced 5 goals and 5 assists against Brighton in just 9 appearances, and against Arsenal, 8 goals and 4 assists in just 10 games against them. Very, very convincing numbers, and clearly opponents that he enjoys playing. This may not be the best way to measure how he'll perform this week, but still, promising stats nonetheless. I've also got to consider the current form of both Brighton and Arsenal, and Brighton in particular are coming off the back of 3 defeats in what's been a real nightmare spell for them. Their bad run has coincided with their defender Adam Webster being out injured, and that too can only be a positive for a Salah captaincy. Arsenal just conceding 2 goals to Watford also furthers the appeal. So that's everything discussed for my team in double game week 29. The captaincy on Mo Salah is almost certainly locked in, but my transfer activity and the activation of the triple captainship are still being weighed up. I'd say that Reece James to Matt Doherty is looking the most likely transfer, but I want to take until Saturday to weigh up the options, with Harry Kane a prime target. As always, I'll post any updates over on the FPL TV Twitter page before the deadline. Good luck to you all for Game Week 29, FPL responsibly, and I'll catch you all very soon.